Christians over here, and the Mormons singing to drown them out. It's LDS conference. Happens twice a year when all the Mormons come together in solemn assembly, brothers and sisters, and say, I know the church is true, and that Joseph Smith is a prophet. Anyway, and then the Christians go down there with signs and picket. There's some Mormons right there with their uniform. Okay, and so anyway, on Shawn's internet show, his first Attack Calvinism show, he proceeds to create a giant flaming straw man and then attack it. And the straw man that he constructs, I think, is it's shoddy. It's shoddy and it's cheap. It's a cheap appeal to emotionalism. And it's something that I find too many Arminians do. They do not look at the doctrinal positions and the exegesis that those who adhere to the doctrines of grace actually use, but they create a giant flaming straw man and then attack it. And in this case, Shawn is proceeded to accuse me and anyone who is a so-called Calvinist of believing in a God that is sitting there rubbing his hands together like some sadist, gleefully creating people to be punished in hell, implying that the people sent to hell are innocent, that they're victims, rather than the doctrine that we all deserve hell. And the natural man in his fallen state hates God and is a rebel. And it is only because of God's mercy that he chooses some who he will to save for his own purposes. I don't know any Calvinist that worships a God who is sitting in his office, rubbing his hands together, gleefully, almost orgasmically, as Shawn seemed to describe it, relishing the torture and the suffering and the punishment of rebels. That's not the God I worship. That's not the God of the Bible. I don't know where you would get that idea. And that's just a big emotional straw man argument that does not honestly and intellectually deal with the actual theology and doctrines that are the foundation of the view from the Doctrines of Grace and God's sovereignty. So, that's just cheap. That's just cheap shots. And that would be like me saying, well, Shawn, you worship a God who created a world and he wanted everybody to be saved, but he let the devil loose. And he let the devil be the prince of that world. And he threw people into all kinds of conditions. He let them fall into extreme poverty, drug addiction, pornography, mental illness. And he stands back, and yeah, he wants to save everybody, but he gets a kick out of just seeing who's going to make it and who's not. He's sitting up there all excited. Ooh, I wonder who's going to pick me. Who's going to pick me and the rest of you? Too bad. I mean, that's the same type of hyperbolic picture that you're painting, Shawn. And it's not honest, and it's not fair, and it's cheap. Now, why bother? I've held my tongue on this for quite a while, and I've been concerned about it for quite a while. Because I'm worried. Okay, Shawn is, whether he's teaching it overtly or just the couple of times he's mentioned it, but it's going to slip into his exegesis that there is not an eternal hell. And I think that is such a serious matter. I mean, Jesus talked about hell more than heaven, and the Bible talks about hell more than heaven. And, I mean, maybe there isn't, but that's not what it would seem the Bible says, and that the majority of excellent scholarship and apostolic teaching has taught for thousands of years. So that's a pretty novel idea. Well, it's actually not novel, it's an old idea, but it's novel in terms of the truth. And what if you're wrong? And to think that you are teaching a congregation that there might not be hell, an eternal hell, and that everybody makes it in the end, like the Mormons teach and the Catholics fairly well teach, that there's some type of purgatory or spirit prison. You know, that's pretty serious. That's serious for a pastor to teach. If you're wrong, that's a big potential burden on your shoulders. You're responsible for those souls that you're teaching that. And the people that follow Shawn are, I think, are afraid to cross him, and I think some of them know better and are continuing to patronize him. And honestly, it almost looks a little bit like the beginning of a cult. It looks a little cultish. It's around the personality, the cult of personality. And I like Shawn. I love what he's done to help get Mormons awakened and to bring people out of the cult of Mormonism. But if it's just to enter the cult of Shawn with false doctrine and false teaching, and if you dare cross him, even though he says, "Oh, I'm open to argument," what really happens is you're violently attacked verbally and spiritually. That I just think that's something that everybody needs to really pray about. And I mean no harm personally, and I love his family. His daughter is extremely talented, all of his daughters, and his wife. So it's not a personal thing. It's just I'm sincerely concerned about the truth. And does the truth matter? And I don't know. I can't sit in there and listen to what I would perceive as false doctrine being taught just because I like Shawn and I think it's comfortable to be in his edgy church, and it's different. It's got personality. It's individualistic. The truth matters too much, and I risk being ostracized by those people, but that's nothing new for me. Anyway, I think that's a very serious thing, and I'll tell you, the fact that Joseph Smith, if your argument against Calvinism is that, one of your arguments is that Joseph Smith created Mormonism in reaction to Calvinism, I don't think that's a strong argument. Joseph Smith was an egomaniacal sex predator, psychopath, and he had problems with Calvinism. I'm thinking that's a big red flag of alert against whatever Joseph Smith doesn't like. I'm thinking it's probably got a lot of truth to it, because I think he was a complete con artist. Well, I don't think, we know he was. The facts bear it out in the history. So arguing that Mormonism was created as a reaction to Calvinism is not a mark against Calvinism, I don't think. If anything, I'd say it's the other way around. Because Joseph Smith, and then free agency became one of the central tenets of Mormonism, is the idea of free will and free agency. And what I'm hearing Shawn you teach is kind of a mishmash of Catholicism and Mormonism and liberal social justice, political liberalism, anarchism. And I just, I think you're pretty stubborn in your ways. And I don't think there's even a remote chance you would be repenting and maybe questioning yourself a bit. But I am concerned about the people that are drawn to you and where they're going to be led. But who am I? I'm just someone who heard a pastor about a year ago or so suggest that the Bema Seat judgment for believers was a place where believers could still be possibly condemned to hell, and then a year later say that hell is not eternal, or strongly suggesting that, and that everybody gets saved in the end. And I didn't do a very good job when I called into the show. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have my scriptures with me, and I was honestly just kind of taken aback by the tone. And but I do recall him saying, hell gives up its dead. Hell gives up its dead. Well, yeah, there's a temporary hell where Hades gives up its dead to be sent to eternal hell, Gehenna, as far as I understand it. Yeah, I'm just someone who is very concerned that a pastor that is charged with teaching biblical sound doctrine is all over the map and leading people who just got out of a cult and false doctrine, leading them into confusion. And I think that's dangerous and serious, and at least I think these things should be able to be discussed. And I'm very concerned for those who left a cult that gave praise to the man, possibly joining another congregation that gives praise to the man instead of standing fast to sound, established biblical truth.
There'll be silence in the depth of night, and cool laughter in the broad daylight. I won't be there, but if you're wasting time, I've got so many things still left